Hi, welcome to Conversion Conversations. This is Cameron, and today I am sharing with you a toy I'm pretty excited about. It is Maketoys Transformers Con TFCon exclusive for TFCon LA. It's their Masterpiece Starscream in G2 colors. They're calling it MTRM-11G2 Screamer. So here we've got Starscream, and he looks incredible. He looks just amazing. I really have a soft spot for his G2 color scheme, and I'm not exactly sure why. I've never owned the G2 toy. Maybe it's just the way the camo looks. I love the purple, like the purple accents they gave him on his nose cone. Ooh, let's get that back in focus. Yeah. I love the camo on his wings. I think as a plane, the top of his plane mode looks really, really good. I do have some issues with it. He does have landing gear under the plane that doesn't roll, but that's fine. What I have issues with is probably kind of the trade-off they had to make in his alt mode to make his bot mode look as good as it does. If you look at the bottom here, he's clearly got like his robot mode arms and pelvis just kind of hanging out at the bottom. I recognize that is a design trade they made. They decided that the bot mode appearance and getting that as cartoon accurate as possible is what they wanted to go for. And with a plane, even a Masterpiece plane, I think that's just something that you have to like trade off. You can't get both. So here is Maketoys, their Starscream. To compare against him, we have... let me get that back in focus. There we go. We have... I forget which Masterpiece number this was, but it was the Hasbro Masterpiece Thundercracker. Let's see if I can get them both in plane mode in the shot. There we go. So you can kind of see they're more or less the same size. They're almost exactly the same size. I'd be willing to bet they are very, very close. Thundercracker, that is, I think that was like MP11-ish, and which was a remold of MP3 Starscream, which that first Masterpiece Starscream was as accurate as possible in jet mode, which I think is pretty cool. Thundercracker, it still has its robot bits, but they fold up, I feel like, a little better and a little more cleanly in his jet mode than the Maketoy Screamer does. But it still looks hella cool. And I think what makes me more okay with this guy is because he has that kind of weird G2 color scheme, I'm more okay with his toyness for whatever reason. The only other figure I want to compare him to is going to be... Oop, man, I am struggling with the camera today. So, these guys are big boys. So here we've got Screamer, and then here we've got the IDW Starscream, the F-22 Raptor. Having an F-15 in the Masterpiece scale kind of makes me want a bigger F-22. The F-22 is a bigger jet than the F-15 was, or is. I mean, it still sees service. But yeah, like it's kind of cool for me to have both the G1 and the G2 color scheme, but have them flipped, whereas the older plane has the G2 Generation 2 color scheme, and the newer plane does not. And as you can see, even though it's a third-party Starscream, I've got Decepticon symbols on him. Maketoys Screamer will absolutely be getting the same treatment soon enough. Oh, actually, before I transform him, I do want to double-check. Here is Thundercracker's stand. Let's see. I didn't think the mounting point here is the same as his stand. And in a quick inspection, yeah, I don't think there's a way to mount him on the actual Masterpiece flight stand, which is okay. I guess the very last thing to look at in jet mode are the accessories he comes with. Oh, that just went everywhere. Okay. So one of the things he comes with are little missile pod ends for his null rays. So if you don't want him to have actual null rays in jet mode, you can pop that off, no problem. and pop this piece back on in its place and stick a missile under his wing instead, which I think, looking at it this way, I think that looks pretty nice. It's a nice little alternative. Okay, now we can transform him. Okay, so to transform him, let's see if I can manage to do this all on camera. First, we'll take off his null ray, his missile, get those out of the way. Next, we're going to come in and we're going to separate out his wings from his body. So you get those out of the way. We can come back down beneath, fold up his landing gear in the back and in the front. And next, I want to take his legs and just open up the flaps behind them. It kind of has a little double hinge that you can pull them out at. And then you can see on camera his knee joint is inside that piece. You can actually take the leg and fold it out away from that knee to get the legs out of the way. There we go. On the feet, he's got his thrusters, and he can take his foot piece and fold it out and away. It's also, there we go. Let's see if we can get that focused. Maybe not. But there's a hinge in here that's ratcheted to get the feet out. You can just pull them away. So with those out, you can take on his back of his legs, you can push in the piece of his tail fin, push that up, fold out on each side. On the outside, there's this little plastic piece here. We can flip that out. And then this creates a notch right here that the slot back here can tab into this tab. So you can fold that back, close it. And then same thing up top, there's a tab right here that when you set it correctly in his leg kind of builds the back of his leg as one solid piece. We can do the same thing on the other side. So kind of fold it down so it sits flat, and then fold this down and make contact on both tabs. Tab 1 here, tab 2. There we go. And now we kind of have his legs done, I think. You can fold up his tail fin, his rear fins. There we go. Ugh. And there you kind of have the legs done. Let me zoom out and back a little bit, and maybe. All right, the next thing we're gonna do, we'll grab him and pull his arms out. It's really easy. It's just a block you can pull out, flip to the sides, get those out of the way. That lets you drop down these bad boys, but we'll do that in a little bit. Next, this center block here is actually 2 pieces. We can pull, let's see if I can get you up. There we go. Pull this down. What? Oh wait, I forgot. What's blocking it is actually these 2 tabs here. Pull these down first. There we go. Now we can flip these 2 sides down. And these pieces actually fold in. You can kind of see the hollow bits. They mate with each other and form kind of his sides of his abs, I guess. There we go. We're getting there. I think this is the first time I've actually tried to do a masterpiece transformation on camera. This is rougher than I was expecting. Next, we can come in on the back, flip these 2 doors open, and flip his nose cone down. And his nose cone has kind of a couple sections. I like the way the nose cone transforms a lot. We'll open out the back and top and front of the nose cone, so open those sections out. That kind of reveals his head. You can flip this down to reveal the rest of his head, and then this part of the nose cone just pulls down. So I'm just pulling this out and away. And you can turn it 180 and collapse it back on top. And then this part of his head, there's a tab here. You can, let me see if I can get it out of the way. On the back, you can pull, there we go. Maybe it's from the front. Okay, so what I did here was, from here, you can pull this out to get it out front and center, and then you take his whole mess of his nose cone piece. It's on this little piston. That pillar you can turn, get it this way, and then his canopy collapses in on itself to form kind of a nice secure half a canopy. And that lets you fold the whole assembly down. You can fold it down into his center column piece. There we go. Now, the sides that we formed for him earlier, those side abs, you can notice they have, oh, come on. Oh, that's what I didn't do. I was wondering why this wasn't connecting. So his arms, they folded down, or they can slide on this column here. You just want to make sure they're up and out of the way, and that lets the sides come out all the way properly. I think I must have readjusted that by accident while I was transforming him. So you have a tab on the side. It fits into the side of his canopy. Same thing on the other side. Slides. Turn it and slide it right in. And now this whole assembly piece can fold in on this hinge, creating one solid core chunk of his body. Oh, I had it and then I lost it. Let me see what I can do off camera to make sure this is all tight. Okay, I got him back on camera. It was literally just me futzing around with his side pieces and pushing them kind of back and in and down to get them to sit into his cockpit slots. I actually have not had a futz with him that much before. It is a fiddly part of the transformation. I figured it would be better if I just left that out. But just so you know, that is kind of one of my complaints about the figure, is that getting everything to tab in up front is a little harder than I was expecting it to. So once you do have his kind of torso built, which I do think is kind of a cool transformation, even if it's a little annoying. The last thing is just back here. His canopy sits out. You can fold this down and in on a double hinge, fold that down, fold it down, and then kind of close the sides up around him. And that is the back piece done. The next thing is the wings. The wings are actually pretty straightforward. We want to just come in. It's on a double hinge down here. There's a tab and a slot for it, no problem up here. Collapse that. Same thing on the other side. Close that up. And then last thing is the arms. The arms can just extend out on both sides. And we've got Generation 2 Starscream all done. Oh, actually, no, there's one part I forgot. A part that I really like on this toy compared to the actual masterpiece. You can fold in and spin around these side pieces of his cockpit to get those out of the way to make his wings look a little nicer and more clean than they did before. So there is Generation 2 Starscream in all his masterpiece glory. Let's see if we can... Come on, camera. There we go. He looks terrific. Let me give him his null rays. They can fit right into his arm up here. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to make some changes to my setup. This, for a larger figure like this, is a bit untenable. Especially with how far away I have to shoot and reach with my arms and stuff. I gotta figure out something a little better than this. But there is Starscream, and he is a bit fiddly. I was kind of surprised by how easily like his wings can pop out on the back. There are some parts that he's a little more delicate than I was expecting, but he looks really cool. I mean, he's G2 Starscream. That's a color scheme I didn't own. I love the silhouette of this guy. I think he looks really good. In fact, it'd probably be best if I just compare him. Let me grab my masterpiece and the other Starscream and kind of show off their robot modes together. So we've got G2 Starscream on the right and Masterpiece Thundercracker on the left. Oop. Yeah, so I mean, there's things I like about both figures. I think the Masterpiece Seeker mold has kind of aged at this point. I like, especially on MP3, their dedication to realism in the alt mode. I really, really like that. But like, you can kind of compare the two in terms of silhouette. Starscream just looks way more dynamic. His shoulders have certain range of motion that kind of helps his posability and his silhouette, whereas I've always thought it was a little odd the way the shoulder line meets the neckline on the Masterpiece mold. It's definitely a cleaner robot mode as a result of the okayness with deviating from the alt mode realism. You know, the shins I think look nicer over here. The crotch, the greebling and stuff. It's cool because that was what was on the plane, but I like the cleanness of this. But yeah, that's those two together. And then bringing in my actual Starscream in terms of color schemes, I just like the G2 color scheme a lot. I like the camo on the wings. I like the gray, the purples. Like it looks really, really good. And yeah, the Seekers are just terrific in general. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of the Seekers, and I'm glad to have this guy on my shelf. I think the very last thing is Poseability, which will hopefully be a little more easy to do than Transformation. And these guys, this Masterpiece mold is very posable. In that regard, I am super happy with it. Let's get a refocus. There we go. So we've got his head, you know, plenty of waggle, plenty of room. The arms can go fully 360 except for the wings, but you can, you know, always move the wing out of the way to get a pose and then pop it back in. It goes up 90 degrees. There's plenty of room to get that null ray out there. The elbows are double jointed, which I really appreciate that curl they add in. His fingers, he's got that kind of Masterpiece articulation where he's got his thumb, the one finger, and then the other fingers move together. He doesn't really have a dedicated ab crunch as far as I can tell. You get some joint movement just due to transformation, things like that. But there's enough there to get some dynamic curling if you want it there. He does have plenty of movement in his leg. You can get it up. You can get it out to the side. You can get a good knee bend. You could break the transformation a little bit to cheat a little more knee bend. And then on his ankles, he's got plenty of ankle rockers, which does help if you want to get something where he's looking sideways at you, pointing his null ray, you can absolutely do that with those ankle rockers. The very last thing I think to show off is just the other two bits of accessories that come with him. He does have two alternate faces, which are small. I think stylistically it helps, but he does kind of have, right, a bit of a pinhead. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so he's got like kind of a small head for his body, which I think helps his like super robotness. The other thing is kind of that face to me. I don't know. Like, is it just like he's got kind of a long nose and the way his lips look? He looks almost like it's like an animal face. Like they took like a guy and stretched it out to look more like a dog, compared to, for example, the IDW Starscream face. I really love that face. I think that is super dynamic looking. I really, really dig that face. But yeah, in addition to the face that he comes with, you also get this face, smirking face, and kind of a screaming oh no face, which I dig. And changing them out is pretty straightforward. There is just a screw in the back of his head that you can undo. You take that off, you can take his face off and swap him. Okay, so this has been like 6 or 7 attempts at recording Maketoys Screamer over the course of a week. Here's my final thoughts. Overall, I like the toy. It's definitely fiddly. It's not a lot of fun to film, that's for damn sure. But I think that might be equally a result of my setup in its current state. He's posable. He looks really good. I love the toy details. I love his, his foot details. I love... Oh, this is the part I hate. I was going to get to that after I said things I loved, but I decided to show this off. This column really does not want to stick together. It's super frustrating. I'm going to look at what I can do to... Maybe I can tighten up these screws here. If you're careful with him, he's pretty posable and you can get him kind of in these dynamic, cool stances. But that does require a lot of time and care to get him in those positions. Overall, I think he's pretty cool. I like that I've got him in my collection. I'm glad I got him at a bit of a discounted price. I would say if you're looking to pick one up, I think they were going for like 150 bucks. I don't know that I'd pay 150 bucks for this guy. That center column piece is just super frustrating. I think the other versions of the mold have held up tighter and are in fact cheaper. So, I wouldn't say maybe the floppiness of this guy might set you off a bit, but the mold itself I've heard is pretty good. This one just has, this major issue, which again, I think I can fix with just tightening up some screws. But yeah, that was Maketoys Screamer, their G2 Starscream, the TFCon LA exclusive. Visually, I really like him. He's a bit difficult. The transformation's a bit fiddly. The way the cockpit works is great. I wish the core kind of locked in a little better. But yeah, that's it. That is the G2 Starscream. And next week, we're stepping away from Masterpiece and looking at a Takara Legends EX figure box set, which I'm excited for. All right, have a great day, everyone. Catch y'all later.